Well, hello there again. This is Andrew, yet again, and this is episode 69, and we're continuing in our studies in Matthew, these just simple reflections. And today we're into Matthew chapter 4, and we're looking at verses 1 to 11. Now, this is the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness, and so we will probably have 2, maybe 3 goes at this. We'll just see how we go, but this is part 1. So we'll read the whole text, and so we want to see it in this context, and then I'll offer a few thoughts about it. Matthew chapter 4 verse 1. Then Jesus, this is just immediately after his baptism, Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again the devil took him to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendour. And he said to him, "All these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. Now, I don't know how it strikes you, but one of the first things that strikes me is that Jesus seems to be intentionally being put in harm's way. The Spirit leads him into the desert so that he can be tempted by the devil. Do I have an answer to that? What do you make of it? I don't know. It's there. It seems to me, though, that there's a sense that this is a preparation for what's to come. And it will ultimately leads to a validation that Jesus can do it. That he can be put under pressure and he can come through okay. It's also a warning to him of what's ahead, of just constantly being aware, being circumspect, being quietly on your guard, that you don't know when something's going to happen. And sometimes they can be the smallest things, as hopefully we will see today. This is a test. It's to make sure that he's ready. What does he do if he fails the test? I don't know. We don't know. The reality is he didn't. But it seems to me that there always had to be the possibility of failure, otherwise it wasn't really a test. If it wasn't possible for Jesus to succumb, to actually fail one of the temptations, could it really be described as a temptation? That's the way my mind works anyway. If he was predetermined, if he was going to pass anyway, what's the point really? What's the point? Anyway, this is where it is. So that today we introduce the temptations, and today we'll be dealing simply with the first temptation. Now, what we read is that at the end of the 40 days, I think that's what it was, I'll just scroll back up, he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was famished. The tempter came to him and said, "If you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." It's easy, isn't it, to imagine that after 40 days of fasting, he's at his weakest. I used to think that. I think, well, surely this is why this temptation is being given now. that's because he's at his weakest. He'll just be beside himself with hunger. Maybe not. I, over the years, have changed my view on that significantly. I think it's actually when, in a sense, he's at his strongest, is at this point. At the end of these 40 days, even with this temptation, he's at his strongest. And Eugene Peterson would seem to agree. His rendition in the Message reads this. Next, Jesus was taken into the wild by the Spirit for the test. The test. The devil was ready to give it. Jesus prepared for the test by fasting 40 days and 40 nights. That left him, of course, in a state of extreme hunger, which the devil took advantage of in the first test. Since you are God's Son, speak the word that will turn these stones into loaves of bread. Now, hear those words again. Jesus prepared for the test by fasting 40 days and 40 nights. And I think Peterson's right. That was his preparation for the test, the fasting. The fasting wasn't the test, it was the preparation. My experience of being on retreat tells me that Peterson is correct. This process is a cleansing, a focusing, a clarifying one. It's what the whole 40 days are about. And though Jesus certainly would have been physically weakened, his spirit would not. His natural appetites are no longer in charge. They've been suppressed by the will and by the grace in which Jesus is standing. You see, this whole point is for Jesus to actually, the inner man, the spirit, is to actually take control. And it would likely have been harder in some ways if this temptation had come at, say, day 15. In terms of Jesus' capacity to go the distance, this may be the real danger point. And the reason I say that is because I read an article recently. It referred to the 40% rule, a concept used by Navy SEALs. And the premise is simple. When your mind, and I'm going to quote from this article, when your mind tells you that you're exhausted, fried, totally tapped out, you're really only 40% done. You still have 60% left in your tank. In short, you always have more in you than you think. When you're doing something difficult and think you need to stop, you have more in you. And they're suggesting, and this is part of the Navy SEALs training, that you've probably got about 60% more in you. You think you're done. And I know that's true. You know, I think about the runs that I've been on. I think about the times I sit down to do stuff. And if I think, well, actually, I can go a little bit more. I can do one more. And then you do that. I can do one more. I can do one more. I can do one more. And you can. So often I find that I can. I can give this for 1 minute. I can give this for another minute. I can give this for another minute. And we can just keep going, one thing, 1 minute at a time. And we find we have capacity to do far more than we imagine that we do. So I think that's right. This is where the 40% rule comes into play. Now, one would think then that it's at this point, at day 15, which my reckoning is about 40%, that where the greatest danger for Jesus might be. He might think, oh, this is just too hard. But it's not here that the temptation comes. And I think it's because Jesus is aware all the way through that it's going to be hard, and has already set his heart, has set his mind, has set his will to go the distance. The 15th day, the 40% mark, isn't going to stop him. He's going to keep going, whatever. He's going to go the distance. It's at day 40 that the temptation comes. And it seems to me is that this is so subtle, so sneaky. Yeah, it's right here at the very end that the first temptation comes. And I imagine it will be something like, come on, do this. You're hungry, eat. It doesn't really matter. You have proven that you can do this. You've done the whole 40 days. Just break your fast. You can do it. Come on. And having done that, you'll be able to demonstrate how much holiness and power you really have by doing this. Maybe Jesus actually had planned to break his fast when he got back into civilization. That's what I would imagine he would be doing. That's how I would think he would have planned it. And yet he's attacked at the last moment. He's being invited, I love this phrase, to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Though it's not presented in that way. It happens to me, because I fast. I've never fasted for 40 days. Mine are usually one-day fast. I have tea the night and the evening, and then I resolve that I won't eat until, say, 5 p.m. the next day. And it's usually 5 p.m. Now, the primary reason that I fast is because actually I like food. And it's a great way of controlling my weight. If I start eating in the morning, and I know this is the case, I just want to keep eating. And I found that actually, as long as I stay busy and stay engaged and focused on other things, I've got much more energy during the day if I don't eat. So I put it off till 4 p.m. Well, over the lockdown, I haven't been doing so well because I've put on quite a bit of weight. So I resolve so often that I won't eat until 5 p.m. And yet, as happened yesterday, it's actually the day before yesterday, 4 p.m. is close enough. You know what I mean? It's close enough. 4 p.m. I'm really hungry. I want to have something to eat. See, mine is giving up on a sprint of just one day. For Jesus, after 40 days, he's being invited to stumble at the finish line just before the tape in a marathon. He's run the whole 26 miles. It's just, the tape's just there. Come on. And he's invited to stumble just before the tape. Now the question is, will God be offended? I don't think so. Will Jesus have sinned against God? I think the answer to that too is no. And the temptation will come, no one else will know. No one else will know. There's just you and me here. I'm not going to be telling anybody else. No one else is going to know that you did this. You did the 40 days. You can reward yourself. No one else will know. And Jesus' response would maybe something like this. Yeah, maybe not. But I'll know. That's the whole point. I'll know. Does it sound familiar to you? Have you heard that voice yourself? It's just a little thing. What harm can it do? No one will know. But I will know. And that's what matters. Jesus knows what harm it can do, because it will violate his sense of himself. It undermines his confidence that the Father will be able to trust him, or want to trust him, because he cannot trust himself. I hope that resonates with you. The times that you've let yourself down, the times that you've stumbled, often in the little things, and have felt a sense of condemnation and judgment. They think, well, how could God trust me then, if I can't trust myself? It might have been a little thing, but it points to the defectiveness in me. It points to the lack of character in me. It points to the weakness in me. And it means that I'm not trustworthy. Why would God want to use me? Why would God want to speak through me when I'm such a defective being? I suspect you get this. How often have I done it to myself? With monotonous regularity. Constantly giving myself mulligans. You know what a mulligan is? Somebody makes a duff shot in golf, and so the other person says, "Oh, just have it as a mulligan. We just won't count it. It's a free shot on the golf course." I don't play golf, but I'm aware that that's what happens. Is this familiar? It's true of me. My hunch is that it's likely to be true of you also. Now, does it offend God? Well, I don't believe so. But it does damage our sense of ourselves. And it offends God in as much as God sees what we're doing to ourselves, and that grieves God. Because the little things matter. And that's one of the principles that comes through in the teaching of Jesus. And you'll probably be hearing me say this as we continue through these series. That the little things actually matter. Because integrity is found in the small things. Failure in the large things starts with failure in the little things. Now, the parable of the talents is a classic example. We get to the end of it and we find that those who have been faithful in the little things actually are trusted with the greater things. You've been trusted with this small amount, I'm going to trust you with this great amount. The ones who have been trusted and are able to be more trustworthy with the small things are more trustworthy with the greater things. Thomas à Kempis has put it like this. He says, "Occasions make not for a man to fail, but they show what the man is." See, this is about character. This is about who we are on the inside. This is about who we are when nobody else is looking, when nobody else can see. It's about who we are in the dark. But we're the ones who know. And actually, that's as important as anything else. Dallas Willard, who's one of my favourites, he has his own take on Lord Acton's dictum, you know. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, he says, well, maybe not so much. He says power doesn't necessarily corrupt. It simply shows us who the person really is. And I think he's right. He shows us, once we've got the power, who we really are. Because character will out. The real essence of who we are, of our integrity or lack of it, will be demonstrated when we have the power to do what we can or what we want. Who we really are is demonstrated. And it's the little things that come back to that. It's the little things that matter. So here we are. That's my take on this first temptation. It's the little things that matter. And they matter to God. I want to suggest an inverse proportion to how much they matter to us. It's a bit like sin. My sin isn't a problem to God unless it's not a problem to me. I'll leave you to chew that one over. The little things actually do matter. God bless you.